Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another edition here of Intuitive Angling. Thanks for taking a little time out of your day to watch the video, much appreciated. And thanks everybody again for helping the channel reach 80,000 subscribers today. That's much appreciated there. Thought we'd have a fun little video today. I thought we'd talk about the possibility if a 30-pound bass exists out there and if it's going to get caught, even if it's a realistic possibility. I got some thoughts on it I was going to share with you guys and be curious to get your feedback on it too. And real quick before we get started, just want to remind you guys, time's running out on the Christmas in July sale at Baitworks. They got 20% off on all Zoom products there in the month of July. If you guys are interested, I'll include the link in the description. Use that link there. It's a great way to help the channel. You can also get the Randy Blaukat 2 model solar bass sunglasses and the old school jigs. It's just a great way to help support the channel here if you're inclined to do that. Okay guys, I, like everybody else, I've always been fascinated by the world record bass. I remember, back when I first got into fishing, I remember Dave Zimmerly caught a 20-pound bass in California. This was been back in 1973. And I remember when that bass was on the cover of Bassmaster magazine, it just didn't even look like a bass. It was so big. It's unbelievable. And what you had after that, I'll sort of give you guys the evolution about that. The world record bass, 22 pounds, 4 ounces, was caught in Georgia, Lake Montgomery, Georgia, I think in 1932. And there's been a lot of speculation, even if that was even true. I've heard both stories on it. I don't know how verified it was. I've heard stories it could have been a striped bass. You just don't ever know with that. But that's has remained the world record even up until today. It was tied a few years ago from an angler in Japan, but that is still the standing record. What you had on that is during the course of the 70s and 80s, you had an explosion of those 20-pound class bass getting caught in California. And then there was another sort of an uptick in the 90s a little bit with the advent of swim baits, that type of stuff. And I think there was one dude that foul hooked a 25-pounder in California a few years ago. So there's been a lot of bass in sort of that, low 20s, 20, 21, 22-pound class caught over the past 40 or 50 years. It used to be back in the day that Florida was where all the big bass were caught. It's like when you thought about trophy bass, it was Florida. Nobody thought about anybody else. I think the state record in Florida is 19 pounds. But what happened with the advent of the introduction of trout into California and the longer growing season they had out there, that's where all the giants have came out of. I'm not aware of any 20-pound bass that have been caught outside of the state of California, with the exception of George Perry's world record. I think Texas has got an 18-something world record or state record, Florida 19. But California is where all the giants were. And then obviously Japan and Lake Biwa produced that 22-pound. Actually, it was 22 pounds, 5 ounces. But the IGF or whatever the record officiator said that it's got to beat the record by over 2 ounces to be considered a record. So they gave it a tie. Now, as far as a 30-pound bass goes, if you guys remember back in some of the Bassmaster magazines in the 30s, there were several undocumented reports of 30-pound bass getting caught in Cuba. I think there was one report of a 32-pounder getting caught, again, not being verified. But when we talk about the reality of a 30-pound class bass getting caught, I just don't see it in myself. And there's a couple different reasons for that. Number one, it's a 30-pound bass, in its natural state like that is like a 1 in a billion fish. I mean, it's something that's such a genetically rare specimen that everything has to line up perfect in order for that to actually work out. And then on top of that, the fishing pressure has just accelerated to the fact that I don't think those fish can be allowed to get that big, because you notice that every single year you have fewer and fewer of those reports of those true giants that come about out there. So I think the combination of the genetic odds against the 30-pound bass existing, and the fact that with the technology that we have with all the sonar and all the swim bait technology and all the people that target big bass specifically in California, I just don't see it myself. I mean, I'm not saying they don't exist out there. There's probably a 30-pound bass that does exist out there at some part, but I just think that odds of ever seeing one of those fish is going to be extremely rare with that. Now, there could be some type of a situation where if you have a fishery that has some type of a, trout type forage in it, or some type of a forage that can produce an excessively large bass. I mean, that's a possibility with that, or some type of a private fishery. In my opinion, if a 30-pound bass does exist, it's probably going to come out of some type of private fishery where somebody grew a bass to 30 pounds. That probably could work, because, man, if you guys have ever been to the Bass Pro Shop aquarium in Springfield here, there's some freak bass in there that they just hand feed. So what's not to say that somebody that, say for example, if some dude had a 20-acre lake, that his own private lake in California, and nobody fished that lake, and the thing is completely stocked with trout, and he grew these monster bass in there, and if that fish was caught, even though that it was like helped along and like sort of like cultivated, I guess that'd be considered a world record. There's nothing that would say that fish is not a legitimate world record. So really, if I don't see a 30-pound bass being caught out of public waters, I don't see a 25-pound bass being caught out of public waters, I think it's going to be extremely rare for us to ever see even another 20-pound bass caught out of public waters. But I think there's a realistic possibility of some freak bass being caught out of private waters at some point. So anyway, just thought I'd toss that around out there. Like I said, for guys like myself, I've only caught 2 bass in my entire life over 10 pounds. One of them I didn't even weigh, the other one I weighed. And both of those fish, were 10, 11 pounds, something like that. I can't imagine, if you guys have ever caught a 10 or 11 pound bass, they are freaking giant. It's like when you catch a 10-pound bass, it is such a freak. And I can't even imagine what adding another 15 pounds or another 20 pounds onto a 10-pound bass would look like. I can't even imagine. The biggest bass I ever caught was down at Lake Okeechobee in Florida, and I'm guessing it weighed 11 or 12 pounds, something like that. It was practiced for a tournament. I didn't weigh it. I can't imagine adding 20 pounds onto that slob that I caught. That thing it wouldn't even look like a bass. I mean, it's just like, it's just a surreal experience to catch a fish like that. So anyway, shoot me some comments, guys. Drop some comments, get a conversation going. Let me know what you guys think. And I appreciate you guys tuning into the video, and we'll check in later. See you.